Hey, good Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and today we are talking about hail once again off in the northern Rockies, maybe even getting down to Denver. We'll talk about it. We are also talking about extreme wind again. Yesterday, we had wind speeds measured at 99 miles an hour. Now, that was up in South Dakota. Could we see that again today in Nebraska? We do have a high wind risk for today, but we'll talk about exactly how high those wind speeds could go. It is in the northern plains. That's really where most of our weather will take place today. So we have another round of storms anywhere from the northern Rockies to the northern plains, even as far east as Chicago. So we have a lot to talk about today. First, I want to get to a look of what we saw yesterday. Yesterday, storms really started across North Dakota. We talked about that yesterday during the noon show. Then we saw things just blow up across South Dakota. What we saw over here were several tornadoes. As we headed into the late evening hours, we saw that congeal into a line and really start to produce some really strong wind on the far eastern side of South Dakota. We also saw some pretty decent hail up in Montana. Now, Billings, Montana is where I want to go to next because we got a 3-star hailstorm yesterday in Billings, Montana. So let's take a look at that hail map right now. Now, this is a sneak peek of your hail map that you could see at HailTrace.com. And at HailTrace.com, we also have photos of the hail. We found several photos of the hail that fell in this area that we have placed on the map and their locations at which they fell. Okay, so head over to HailTrace.com for the full map, but I want to give you some information here. Tennis ball size hail was the largest hailstone we saw in Billings yesterday. Again, a 3-star map because it impacted a ton of people. 25,000 homes impacted with at least 1-inch size hail or larger. Now, again, our star ratings are based off of the number of people impacted and how hard that area was hit. So again, tennis ball size hail, at least 1-inch size or greater, impacting about 25,000 homes. It's pretty impressive. Alrighty, now moving on to what we could see today. Today, it's pretty decently quiet out there. No showers and storms across North and South Dakota as of right now. Nothing at least to talk about. Here's a look at your risk for today. We have a slight risk that extends anywhere back up to Billings all the way down into Colorado, Wyoming. Now let's go to Colorado. There you go. Including Denver and then Nebraska. That's where we're really going to see that high wind today. And then we could see storms extend as far east as Chicago. Tomorrow, we have 2 areas that we're watching for storms tomorrow. Once again, back into Denver, Wyoming, and Montana. And then we have a really wide area that we're watching for some high wind as well as a potential for flooding anywhere from the Midwest all the way off to the East Coast. So that's your Wednesday. Thursday, where's the severe weather risk? Nothing to talk about right now. Now, I think that will change by the time we get to Thursday. This far out, we can't tell you exactly where any severe storms will be. Are we kind of winding down as we get into the middle of summer? Are those hot temperatures finally taking over? No, we are going to see some cooler temperatures come by. Thankfully, we've got several cold fronts out there. One cool front actually went through Denver today, dropping temperatures down into the 70s and 80s. That was really, really nice today. Taking a look at your current conditions, we've got a few showers out there across Wyoming and Montana. We've got a few showers going across Iowa as well. But for the most part, everything is non-severe, nothing to talk about too much right now. Now let's take a look at your East Coast. Pretty quiet out there. I think conditions are pretty calm on the East Coast today. We've got just heat galore out to the southeast. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting out there. Temperatures are really, really uncomfortable in the southeast today. Now, we do have a little boundary. Do you see this boundary that's setting up right along the Rockies right here? Later on today, especially with the peak heating of the day, what we're going to see is we're going to see storms go up right along this boundary and then track into places like Denver as we head into the afternoon hours. And then we're going to see that hail risk extend as far north as Montana once again today, right up to Billings, very similar to where we saw those storms yesterday. Now, I told you that heat is very uncomfortable today out in the southeast. We are already at 94 in Dallas, 95 in Atlanta. Oof. That's gross. 93 in Las Vegas. However, it is a little bit cooler in places that we have that boundary in place. 73 up in Denver, 82 in Minneapolis, and 68 in Billings. So some of us have that relief from the heat. Others are still included in a heat advisory and an excessive heat warning today. A lot of our big cities included in that excessive heat warning where temperatures could feel like 110 or higher. Yes, it could feel like 110, 110. You were hearing that correctly. That includes Omaha all the way down into St. Louis, Memphis, most of Tennessee, Kentucky, and portions of eastern Missouri and Arkansas, all included in this excessive heat warning. We even have some extreme heat as far south as Georgia and Florida today. Yeah, it's really hot out there. That's gross. Alrighty, let's go back to your hazards for today. Your storm hazards include that large hail, high wind, and maybe an isolated tornado or two. Now, where are we expecting the largest hail today? I have a line that extends anywhere from Denver all the way up to Montana, but what we're really watching for today is we're watching for these oranges and we're watching for these reds to creep in for the largest hail. So where we're seeing that is into Wyoming and into Montana. Once again, Billings in that swath, in that path for large hail today. In northern Wyoming, I think that's also going to be the sweet spot for the largest hailstones today. But let's fast forward and let's get your max forecasted hail size. I went 2 inches. Now this is what I said yesterday, and then we got tennis and baseball size hail yesterday. So I went 2 inches for today. Could we get some isolated larger hailstones? I think that's possible. However, will most of our hailstones be a little bit smaller, quarter to ping pong ball size hail? Yes. We've got a question coming on here for Mississippi for hail or wind dates. Does that mean like looking to the future? Are we talking about forecast here? Mississippi is out of the severe weather watch for today. We are not worried about severe weather in Mississippi today. However, you guys are feeling that just uncomfortable heat today. That will be your biggest concern today, will be that uncomfortable heat. Alrighty, moving on to your HailTrace hail forecast. What we're watching for today is, again, the largest hailstones. I would give it maybe ping pong, maybe golf ball size hail as you get up into Wyoming and Montana. The farther south that you go, lower those hail sizes. Get down into your ping pong, maybe your $half size hail sizes, down into Colorado. But you go up to the north, you could get maybe some isolated 2 inchers up there. Let's put some cities on the board here. Let's get your risks as well. Again, a better chance for larger hail up to the north, not as great farther down to the south. Hey, Omaha is included in this risk today. Do you see that? It's a low risk, but we're saying there's a chance. Omaha, your biggest risk today is going to be that hail risk. We could see a few tornadoes on the board today, but there's really nothing to determine a widespread area for tornadoes today, so I left that risk off of our forecast for today. Really what we're watching for, once again, will be that extreme wind. Anywhere from McCook up to Omaha, we could see some extreme wind today, up to 70, maybe 80 miles an hour. Very similar to what we saw yesterday. What we're going to see today, or we're going to see storms go up and they'll produce that really, really strong wind across a large portion of the state. Most of the central, eastern, and portions of western Nebraska, all included in this high wind risk today. Let's go to, we're gonna zoom down. Here, let's take a look at McCook. Omaha included in that high wind risk today, up to 80 mile per hour wind speeds. And then we've also got Chicago included in this risk today. Now, I'm not gonna spend too much time on Chicago. I know that this is a very popular area. However, I'm not gonna spend too much time because your storms today are going to be strong to marginally severe, not terribly intense. You could get up to 60, maybe 65 mile per hour wind speeds. You're going to have some really, really rocky waves out on the Great Lakes today. For the most part, I'm not too terribly worried about that storm concern in Chicago today. I'm actually going to take you back out to the mountains, and we're going to go into Denver here. Now, there are often times that I choose a city or two to really focus on because of their comments on social media. We have had so many questions in our comment section about Denver, so I was like, let's focus on Denver today. Now, you guys let us know where you're watching from, and if you're watching from a different area of the country, we'll try to focus on your cities next time they're in the path for severe storms. Now, taking a look at Denver today, it's a marginal risk, yes. One of the highest risks that you're watching for will be 60-mile-per-hour wind speeds and localized flooding. So you know that spot in your neighborhood that always tends to flood? That's what you're watching for here with this localized flooding. Large hail, again, I told you we could get up to ping pong, maybe $half ping pong ball size hail today. I kept that in the low to moderate category today, really just in the middle there. We put that in the green category earlier whenever we were talking about our HailTrace hail forecast. But let's go to your timeline here. We'll talk about the timeline for Denver. We'll also talk about the timeline for some of our really hail-driven cities today. Where's the biggest hail risk? Let's go up to Montana for that. Billings got hit pretty hard yesterday, so let's talk about the timeline for Billings today. What we're talking about is seeing storms fire up later on this afternoon. This will continue to stay pretty isolated into the early evening hours, but become more clustered and widespread as we head into the late evening hours. Really focusing on the southern side of Montana today, but as we go down to the south, we could see a few more storms into Wyoming. So let's actually head down there. Let's talk about Wyoming and all the way into Nebraska. Now remember, we're kind of splitting this up with different hazards. We're talking about the hail risk in Wyoming, and we're talking about the wind risk in Nebraska. So let's take a look at that timeline here. Storms will fire late this afternoon into this evening. Still pretty isolated right around that evening commute, going through Cheyenne around that evening commute, right across I-90 during that evening commute between about 5 and 6 o'clock. And remember, this is in Central Time. Now moving into the late to overnight hours, that's when things really start to get active and interesting for Nebraska. So you can see that we've got a line of storms that stretch from the west to the east side of the state. That's whenever we're watching for some of the strongest wind speeds. We told you up to 80 miles an hour in this area. With widespread showers and storms, we could also see a flooding risk across Nebraska as well. Moving off to the east a little bit and bringing you now back into our Midwest, and I told you we'd focus on Chicago a little bit, not focusing too much on Chicago here, but I'll go through your timeline once again. Most of these storms will be likely to favor the late night hours. So you could see a shower or two while it's still light out, but most of these storms will come late tonight and into early tomorrow morning. I know we have a lot of questions oftentimes about Iowa as well. This will be an overnight system for you in Iowa. Let's go back to Denver. I told you guys I focus on certain cities that we hear often from. So we hear a lot of people talk about Denver on our comments section and in our DMs. We get a lot of questions in our DMs about Denver. So let's talk about the Denver specific storm timeline here. 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock this evening. By about 3 o'clock, you'll see those storms pop up on radar to the west of I-25. These will continue to track to the east as we head into the late night. I'm not going to say late night. Let's say late afternoon hours. Into the late afternoon hours, here we are, 3, 4, 5 o'clock here, once again during your evening commute. And even as you're about to lay down, these storms are out to the west. I'm not too worried about them anymore. What are your biggest hazards here? Earlier we told you 60-mile-per-hour wind speeds and some localized flooding is possible. But we'll break down that hail hazard right now. Your chance for 1-inch size hail, I put that in the low to medium category. So I would give it like a really solid low chance. Max forecasted hail size, very, very isolated here, $half to ping pong ball size hail. Not the best hail risk we've ever seen, but hey, we're saying there's a chance. Alrighty, moving on now. Let's kind of do a recap. What did we talk about for storms today? We talked about that hail risk out to the west, the wind risk through the northern plains, and even a very minor wind risk in places like Chicago and Iowa. Moving on to tomorrow, we have another chance for hail across places like Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, very similar to what we talked about today. And then we have another chance for high wind across the Midwest and East Coast for tomorrow. By Thursday, we don't have a risk on the board quite yet, but I do think that that will change as we head into the next 48 hours. We'll get more information on Thursday, and we'll probably have storms somewhere in the U.S. I don't think that we've gone most of this year without at least a marginal risk. I'll have to check that. I'm very interested to see if we'll have we had even one day that we haven't had a marginal risk? I'm not quite sure. Okay, let's move on here. Looking at storms tomorrow, yeah, I told you that even through the early morning hours, we'll have storms into places like Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and then into Michigan. This will continue through your afternoon and evening. Here you go, Wednesday evening. You're going to have storms all across this area. We told you that high wind is possible across the Midwest tomorrow. And then we've got those hailers that set up across the northern Rocky Mountains. Taking a look at your Denver forecast for tomorrow. Very similar to today, storms will fire up just to the west of I-25, tracking across the highway as we head into the evening hours. You're good to go to sleep by about 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow. By the time the sun goes down, those storms are out of here. Alrighty, now let's talk about the tropics. We're bringing you way down to the south now, where nothing is going on out in the Gulf. Okay, I'm not saying nothing, but we don't have anything significant forming that could turn into a tropical cyclone within the next 5 days. We are pretty quiet out in the Gulf and out in the Atlantic right now. But things really start to change as you head into the Pacific. Have you guys seen this? I know that this doesn't impact I mean, we were really close to being done anyway. How about now? You guys hear me? Don't you guys love live television? This is the beauty of live media right here, is that you never know what you're going to get. Can you hear me? Can you not hear me? Alrighty, let's move on. Where did we end up? We talked about quiet in the Gulf and the Atlantic, very active across the Pacific. We see this pretty often. Oftentimes, whenever the Pacific is very active, the Atlantic is very quiet. This is something that is not uncommon. We are expecting to get a little bit more activity as we head into the next few weeks, into the next month. Be patient. We kind of saw this last year too, where we saw some pretty significant storms, a pretty significant hurricane early on in the season, and then we had a very quiet month and a half, and then we saw a lot more activity towards the end of the season. So we could see that once again this year. Actually, if you're interested in a hurricane forecast, later on this afternoon, we have our 2025 hurricane forecast with our CEO, Derek Klein, coming out on our YouTube page, so check that out later on this afternoon. Alrighty, let's take a look at your temperatures. It's still very hot out there, but I think that you're going to like this forecast because we have some cooler temperatures making their way into the northern plains today. Yes, it does look like it cools down for a good portion of the U.S. as we head into the later portion of the work week. And it stays on that cooler trend as we head into August. So if we fast forward here, and let's get into the very end of July, early August. This is a little silly. It should say August 3rd through August 7th. That's what this map should say here. But what we are seeing is we're seeing a decent cool down for the East Coast. We're seeing a decent cool down out to the west as well. Now I know that you see this red and you're saying, oh, it's still going to be hot in so many places across the U.S. like Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. But the rest of us will cool off to temperatures that are just typical for this time of the year. So you know that summertime heat that you usually expect, that's what we'll feel into the first week of August. It won't be above average. So it'll be some relief for us. We're not talking about cool, we're talking about normal. Alrighty, as we head into the first week of August for your precipitation, what we're talking about here is about average for this time of the year. A little bit dry out to the west, and then we'll see that active trend continue right through the middle of the U.S. And there's your forecast today. Thanks for dealing with our audio issues. You know, that occasionally happens. Did we get all of our questions today? We did. John says yes. All right, well, thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We posted a picture of just a monster tornado yesterday on Facebook and our Twitter and Instagram pages, so go and check that out. And give us a call if you're interested in any one of those hail, wind, or tornadoes that we mapped yesterday. So we have all of our hail maps updated right now from storms yesterday. Wind and tornado maps are updated as well. Give us a call at 855-334-4245 for one of those maps. You can always email us at info@hailtrace.com or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you back here for your forecast.